We were also introduced to Dennis and Robert Skotek, Bob Skotek, by Gail Ann Hurd, and they had worked with her on Aliens, and they were about to do work for her on The Abyss, and they are just primo miniature guys.
My role on Tremors was as director of photography, and in most of the work that we do, I'm the director of photography and will direct the action at certain times when my brother isn't directing the action. He art directs, and I'm the director of photography. During Tremors, there was a lot of very difficult lighting challenges in very specific areas that, as a director of photography, I had to deal with. And among them were matching to the live action's lighting, which in a lot of cases was the sun, was outdoor sunlight, which is a challenge.
It was so hot, and we were shooting in the summer. I remember it was 109 outside, and one particular day we were shooting, and I had to squeeze up behind the back of the set and work on the backdrop. Now, there was enough light there that my shirt actually started smoking from the heat. And at that point, where I almost scorched myself, I said, you know, we're going to start working at night. So we started coming in the evening and working through the night, and the rest of that job was shot at night when it was much cooler outside because we could not tolerate the heat on the set from our lights combined with the outside temperature.
Alec Gillis and Tom Woodruff's company built the creature miniatures for the film. The Forward built the miniatures of the basement interior and all the desert terrain, all the exteriors, all of the desert, which sounds sort of strange to build the desert, but in fact things had to be constructed, and there were backdrops that had to be painted, and there were the sagebrush and bush and cactus that had to be built, and all that to match live action. In the basement sequence, when the creature breaks through the wall into the survivalists' little into their basement and starts destroying their room. The full-sized creature was used to break through the wall. It was determined that to get all of the shots that were necessary, we had to do it in miniature. For example, there's a scene where the worm swings up and hits into the ceiling of the basement and breaks some ceiling tiles off. In that particular scene, that was done as a miniature, as a quarter scale basement that was built fully to match the live action set. And in that case, we were again able to do the things that the full-size couldn't do. The full-sized worm was not quite as long as that and would never reach up that far that fast to do it, and that's where we were able to help them out.
We had this situation with the basement with a lot of pieces that had been dressed in by the art department. And of course, for the art department to acquire magazines and a shell loader and these various kinds of toolboxes is one thing. That's an off-the-shelf item you set on the table. Of course, when we come in, any one of those items could be very terrifying to build and require weeks and weeks of work. One such item was a stool, just a standard like a bar stool, and it was sitting off in the corner. Well, we didn't want to not make it because we knew it was going to be a difficult piece to make, so we included that as in the miniature. And it turned out we had spent 2 weeks. I've spent 2 weeks building this thing myself, so I don't even know what the cost of making that one prop was. Probably more than some of the low-budget movies made in Hollywood. But one of the things that came up with that stool is that after the way the shot was originally set up, that chair was going to be knocked over by the creature and actually get hit during a take. And we thought, well, it's going to take us 2 days to repair this chair if it falls down. So we talked to Ron, and we said, we've got this really terribly expensive stool. Would it be a really bad thing if it was off on the corner and didn't have to get hit by the creature? He said, no, if it's an expensive chair, it can be off on the side. I don't want to see your chair get hurt. So that's what we did.
We did an odd shot where we matched a live-action, full-sized person's feet with our miniature, and we did it all as a in-house kind of thing. We did an insert of what would have been Michael Gross's feet as he drops a gun. A gun falls to the floor, and then the camera does a whip pan onto the creature. And this was a proposal that we came up with, and Ron seemed to like it, so we gave it a try, and the shot worked out quite well. But we do a whip pan, and in the middle of that whip pan, there's a cut, and we go from one of our guys working for us, his feet, taking Michael Gross's feet, his place, and we dropped a gun on the floor, and then whip pan directly onto a miniature and do a matched cut. And it looks flawless and looks like it was all part of it. So this tended to make to create a scene. This made a scene where we could pan from the actors directly onto a miniature and get a sense that the two are integrated, rather than being two separate kinds of shots, or we only see the creature or we only see them. This way it got them both together.
We decided once again that we would make a hand puppet, because we hadn't originally planned to make a miniature hand puppet of the worm. And what we did was we built a worm head that had cables that you could pull cables, and you could pull levers and open and close the jaw pieces, and that was on a handle so that you could get the head movement. And then we made the rest of the body cover your arm about up to here. And that was the one that was used for thrashing and crashing up into the ceiling and thrashing that around and dropping back down.
The one thing we didn't have in our location of our needs was this cliff, this huge cliff face for the end of the movie, and it's set up at the beginning of the movie. And so we went to Illusion Arts, a matte painting company, and they did an incredible job at creating this the illusion that there were these cliffs at one end of the valley. And we relied on that, as well as the miniature cliffs at the end, which the creature actually burst through.
At the end of the film, the payoff, the creature dies at the end of the film, and he crashes through the cliff and lands on the ground and splats, and he's dead. We had to create a miniature version of that cliff for our purposes. We did it as a perspective shot, and a perspective shot is pretty straightforward, kind of a simple concept. And what it is you build something that's smaller than the real object, and then you put something behind it and line the two up with the right camera angle, and it looks as though it's larger than it actually is. So you're bringing a small object, putting it close to the camera, and putting people into it further away, and it looks like it's an actual full-size cliff.
When we were shooting the miniature cliff at the end for the ending, the creature bursting out of the wall of the cliff, we had doubles for each of the actors, because they had to be way up on a scaffolding high above this miniature cliff with a forced perspective to think that they were standing on this cliff. And we were waiting for the female stunt double to arrive, Rhonda's stunt double, and she never showed up. So there were no women there actually in that day of photography. So I got drafted in and had a wig put on, and I played Rhonda for that scene. But finally I cut myself out of the movie, because that shot was not necessary. So we ended up leaving it on the floor. But for a brief time I played Rhonda in the movie.